Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. Permit me to recognize the head table, our political leader, leader of the opposition, and members of the head table. I want to say a special good evening to you, Flambeau family. Good evening to fellow St. Lucians, to members and supporters of the United Workers' Party, to our supporters and members in the diaspora, especially in Canada, in New York, in Texas, the Virgin Islands, and I think Miami. And of course, to the media for being here tonight with us. I bring you special greetings from Sulphur City tonight. And as Spider aptly said, tonight I am going to be speaking on the disastrous state of the economy of St. Lucia. An economy, brothers and sisters, which is in shambles. A country in crisis, and a prime minister who has given us a 6 for a 9 in a budget just to woo the people of St. Lucia. Brothers and sisters, St. Lucia, permit me to go back in time. And I like to go back in time because I believe it is important for us to understand where we were and where we are going to go. It gives us information for us to make better decisions. And so, before I delve into the presentation of the state of this economy, I just want a little time to go back to a few years ago. And I want to take you back to a time when the former Prime Minister of this country, Dr. Kenny Anthony, said in an interview with his press secretary at the time, and he said, and I quote, "Something happened which had never happened before. We went on the RGSM, the Regional Securities Market, to borrow, and St. Lucia could not borrow." I think that statement was made in 2014. At that time, brothers and sisters, we were experiencing 3 years of negative growth under a Labour Party administration. We had an economy where there was no confidence, no buoyancy in this economy. Unemployment was over 24%. Youth unemployment was almost 40%. We had the closure of businesses throughout the length and breadth of St. Lucia, especially in the south of the island. We had the introduction of VAT at 15% on the backs of the people of St. Lucia. And the list goes on and on and on. I want us to remember those years, those times on the Labour Party. And in 2013, after his election as political leader of the United Workers' Party, after we put together a team of men and women with the capacity, the ability to take this country into a new direction, into prosperity and growth and opportunities for all, we told you, the people of St. Lucia, you, our Flambeau family, that we are going to build a new St. Lucia. I want us to remember that. And Alan Shastler said to you, as our political leader back then, heading into the campaign of the general elections in 2016, that because of the damage that the Labour Party had inflicted on this economy, we would have been able to see a change in the direction this country was going to be heading in 3 years. In 3 years, we promise that change, brothers and sisters. After inheriting all these maladies of the Labour Party in 2019, in 2016, brothers and sisters, by 2019, all of you could admit St. Lucia was soaring to new heights under Alan Shastney and the United Workers' Party. We had recorded over 1 million visitor arrival, the highest in the history of tourism arrivals in this country in 2019. Unemployment was down by down to 16.8%. Youth unemployment was down to about 31.6% from 40%. St. Lucia was leading the OECS all the way. All the way. Then, brothers and sisters, came the dreaded COVID-19 virus at the end of December 2019. And by March 2020, we had experienced a complete shutdown of this economy in St. Lucia. Our GDP, gross domestic product, had contracted by 24%. We lose $1 billion in the GDP. Almost every single employee in every sector of this economy was at home. But your government, under Alan Chasney, we did not retreat. We did not surrender. We did not put up our hands and said, there's nothing I can do. We did not have a manual, a playbook as to how to deal with COVID. We led as a government of creativity, a government with a vision, a government with a plan, and we put together, brothers and sisters, a comprehensive, a strategic plan of economic and social recovery for this country. We put together that plan. And that plan, brothers and sisters, came in two parts. One, we put a plan for the gradual reopening of the tourism sector. Because we understand the importance of tourism to St. Lucia. We know the value of the tourism dollar to St. Lucia and to St. Lucians. And we put together the protocols by consulting with all the many stakeholders involved. Then the other part of it was the construction projects. We had many shovel-ready construction projects, HIA, the roads, the housing projects. Those projects were being financed by private individuals. The airport was the loan from the Taiwanese. Those monies were already there. It was not costing the taxpayers $1. And we rolled out those projects. Then the second part, the first part was reopening of the sector and construction. And the second part, brothers and sisters, was a social plan. And you have to remember, 11,000 households were assisted with electricity bills. We increased the number of persons under poverty assistance programs. We increased the amount of monies vulnerable persons, disabled persons, persons who suffered from AIDS and so on got in this country. We had the food boxes going around and a number of other interventions which we put in place to help the most vulnerable. We spoke with the financial institutions for the moratorium of 6 months. We spoke to the telecommunication companies, the utility companies, negotiated for moratoriums because we understood the impact of COVID on households, brothers and sisters. This was part of our social recovery plan. And yes, you have to remember when we said we are going to do the gradual reopening of the tourism sector, the current Prime Minister, leader of the opposition back then, what did he say? You have to remember those things. That Alan Chasney is the only Prime Minister in the world who believes that tourism will come back. That's what was said. You have to remember as well, when we were undergoing the road rehabilitation projects, what the opposition back then, the Labour Party said, people don't eat roads, give the people the money. You have to remember those things, brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, with our plan, by July 2020, tourism had returned to St. Lucia. Not in the numbers pre-COVID, but there was a gradual reopening of that sector. And St. Lucia led the OECS, St. Lucia led CARICOM, and St. Lucia was probably the first country in the world to reopen its tourism sector. Brothers and sisters, In July 2021, the people of St. Lucia made a major error, a very unfortunate mistake, and elected a St. Lucia Labour Party into government. And as the people say, the rest is history. The rest is history. And tonight, brothers and sisters, fellow St. Lucians, I am now going to go into the history, the disastrous history of the St. Lucia Labour Party in mismanaging the economy of this country. A party which found a solid foundation left by the United Workers' Party, and they squandered every opportunity to build that superstructure to continue to take St. Lucia to new heights in the OECS and the Caribbean region. Brothers and sisters, despite the Labour Party's vindictiveness, hatred, and anger towards Alan Shastney and the United Workers' Party, they stopped every single project which we had going, catapulting thousands of St. Lucian men and women into unemployment. Trucks, heavy equipment, packed on the side, packed in corners, grass growing on them because of politics. Despite all the vindictiveness, at the end of 2021 fiscal year, financial year, St. Lucia recorded 12.5% economic growth from a contraction of 24%. This was not the work of the Labour Party. This was the work of the United Workers' Party. It was the policies of Flambeau, the economic and social policies of Flambeau that gave us that growth. We were second only to Guyana, which recorded 19%. And remember, Guyana is a major oil-producing country right now. In 2022, all the projects closed, shut down, still have United Workers' Party programs, policies, which they could not get rid of. We recorded over 18% economic growth, brothers and sisters. Over 18%. So ask yourselves, had the Labour Party not stopped all those projects because of vindictiveness, because of politics, where St. Lucia would have been after 2021 and 2022, economically in the region and the lives of the people of St. Lucia? Brothers and sisters, we just had the report, the financial, economic, and social report of 2023. And the Labour Party, they are now on their own. So they're in their third year, they're on their own. And do you know, they had no plans. There is no vision with this party. There is no creativity, no innovation. The economic growth recorded in St. Lucia was 2.2%. 2.2%. But you believe that this is all. When they want to talk about financial stability and economy is doing well and everything, the average economic growth in the ECCU, Eastern Caribbean Credit Union, the 8 or 9 countries of the OECS, was 4.3%. It was 4.3%. Average. St. Lucia was 2.2, well below 4.3%. And this country of ours have always been the economic leader in the OECS. Always. And I'm going to give you some stats. I am going to give you some stats. Antigua and Barbuda's economic growth in 2023. And brothers and sisters, fellow St. Lucians, all those countries, they went through COVID. All those countries got impacted by the Russia-Ukraine war. All those countries suffered inflation problems. Because our prime minister is always making excuses. He's always ducking, always passing the blame. He refused to take responsibility. Is COVID, is Ukraine-Russia war, is imported inflation. All those countries went through those crises. Antigua and Barbuda, the economic growth was 3.9%. Dominica went through all those crises. You remember they had the hurricanes, Irma and the other one, Maria? 2 hurricanes back to back. Dominica's economic growth was 4.7%, above the OECS's average. 4.7. Grenada, 3.6%. St. Kitts and Nevis, 2.3%, 0.1% better than St. Lucia. Mama Iflabo, Little St. Vincent and the Grenadines just down there, ou pas quand même ton observation, 6%. 6% economic growth. Little St. Vincent, Little Ralph Gonzalez, 6%. And St. Lucia, 2.2%. That is the history, the disastrous history of the Labour Party. They have placed St. Lucia at the bottom of the economic ladder in the OECS. The very bottom. And remember, brothers and sisters, this is the same prime minister in a position who said, I am the most prepared for the job. We have to remember those things, you know. That is why I like to go back in the past to remind us he was the most prepared, he said. Yes, but you got a solid foundation to build on, to continue to make St. Lucia the envy of every Eastern Caribbean country, the envy of the rest of the region. You have placed St. Lucia at the bottom of the economic ladder with a 2.2% economic growth. And you tell me you were the most prepared, you're ready. Brothers and sisters, based on the statistics I have given you there, I did not make up those stats. It is in the Economic and Social Review which they presented, which the staff of the Ministry of Finance presented so that we debated it in Parliament. That is their report. It shows that St. Lucia is the worst performing economy in the OECS. And what does that mean, brothers and sisters? We have the worst Minister of Finance in the OECS. We have the worst Prime Minister in the OECS. We have the worst economic managers in the OECS. Well, we have the most corrupt, we all know that. And I know we are going to deal with corruption later on. We have become the laughing stock of the OECS, brothers and sisters, when we led for many years. And in 3 short years, this Prime Minister, brothers and sisters, this government have put us at the bottom of the pit. They have betrayed the trust and confidence which you, the people of St. Lucia, placed in them on July 26, 2021 to manage the affairs of this country. The economic results shows that we are in trouble. It is a disaster. I continue, brothers and sisters. I remember my days in Parliament when all they were saying to us when we came on a Tuesday for Parliament, mardi prêté. That was the term, mardi prêté. Brothers and sisters, in 2023 alone, last year, 2023, the SLP government borrowed over $388 million. Over $388 million was borrowed. And remember, we are not in a crisis. We are not in a crisis. We are not in COVID. In the worst times of COVID, Alan Chasney, the year of COVID, we borrowed $330 million. And that was for budgetary support. Because we had lose almost 80% of the revenue intake. We had to pay salaries, we had payables, we had interest, principal on debt to repay, etc., etc. We did not default, not for 1 month. And we borrowed only $340 million that year. 2023, no crisis, you have borrowed $388 million. This borrowing, brothers and sisters, in 2023 represents an increase of 8.8% in our borrowing. So they have increased the borrowing by 8.8%. So the debt grew, brothers and sisters. The debt of the country grew 4 times than our economic growth of 2.2%. And I want to put that in simple terms so that everybody could understand what I mean. When I say the debt increased by 8.8%, economic growth at 2.2%, debt has grown by 4 times more than your economic growth. Very simple terms for everybody to understand. It's like you go to Piton Company to buy a carton of pineapple juice. That carton of pineapple juice, it has 20 smaller boxes in it. Piton Company sells it for you for $80. It means that each box of that pineapple juice in that carton cost $4. You pay $4 for each of the boxes. So 20 by 4, that's 80. And you take that carton of pineapple juice, you go home, you're a small vendor, or you have a small bar, a small grocery store, you put it in your fridge, you have to pay the electricity for the fridge, or you put it in your cooler, you have to buy ice, pay to make the ice, you put it in the cooler, and you go and you sell that box of pineapple juice for $1. That's what it simply means. You buy something for $4, but you are going to sell it back for $1. Does that make sense, brothers and sisters? For how long can we sustain this? And they say that they are the best managers of the economy. That's what they say. But the results, the stats, shows that they are giving you a 6 for a 9. They believe they can fool you, the people. But we know better. Brothers and sisters, in 3 years, this SLP government have placed taxpayers in debt of over $1 billion. 3 years, they have borrowed over $1 billion. And there's nothing to show for it. Nothing to show for the $1 billion. That is more money than Alan Chasney borrowed in 5 years. In 3 years, they have borrowed over $1 billion. In 5 years, we did not even borrow $1 billion. And remember, we went through the COVID crisis. Debt to GDP ratio, brothers and sisters, have grown from 69.8% in 2022 to 72.9% in 2023. And the prudential limit is 60%. And debt is going to continue, the debt to GDP ratio will continue to increase. Because there is no signs of stopping, there is no signs of slowing down by this Prime Minister and government when it comes to the borrowing. Brothers and sisters, another scary figure which you all must remember, must try to understand. Our debt repayment last year increased by a whopping 17.2% to a gigantic $331 million. So every year we have to repay $341 million in debt. That is on interest and principal. Because the Labour Party have increased the debt repayment because of all the borrowing by 17.2%. Important. What does that mean, brothers and sisters? It means that you, the taxpayers of this country, you have to repay over $27 million a month in debt, or almost $1 million a day in debt in this country. That's what it is. You, the taxpayers, have to repay the banks, both locally, regionally, and internationally, almost $1 million a day in debt under this Labour Party. And they said they were the best prepared. And you have to ask yourself, brothers and sisters, why is it that our roads are like this? Why is it that we have no medication at the hospitals and the health centers? Because we have fewer resources, brothers and sisters, to invest in the sectors, the very important sectors of this country. This is a government, brothers and sisters, of less growth. This is a government of less money in the economy, and this is a government of more debt. And as I said earlier, brothers and sisters, the Prime Minister continues to give excuses about inflation as imported inflation. But economists worldwide will tell you, brothers and sisters, that the main cause of inflation is energy prices. One of the main causes of inflation is the cost of fuel. And this is why, brothers and sisters, an Alan Chastanet administration, we capped gas prices at $13.95 per gallon, regardless of the price on the international market. Gas on the earth, even during COVID, never went beyond $13.95 a gallon. Never. In June 2022, the price of crude oil was US $122 on the world market. The Labour Party government had us to pay $17.95 per gallon. That was in June 2022. By December of the same year, 6 months later, in December 2022, the price dropped on the world market. The price of Brent crude oil dropped to US $80.92, over $40 US drop. The government of the Labour Party had us to pay $17.70 at the pumps per gallon. They only removed 25 cents off the gallon. And you ask yourself, is this a prime minister who cares? Is this a prime minister with a conscience? Is this a government that is putting you, the people of St. Lucia, first? Or is it a government that is hell-bent on taking every St. Lucian man and woman into poverty? Today, brothers and sisters, Brent crude oil is US $80.01 on the international market, and we are still paying EC $16.50 per gallon. On the Alan Chastanet, when the oil was $80.02, we were paying $13.95 a gallon. Still over $3 more under the Labour Party. $3 more. Brothers and sisters, last year, the government made $1.08 more on a gallon of gas. They made $2.20 more on a gallon of diesel. And yet, the government did not pass on these savings to you, the people of St. Lucia. The government reduced, brothers and sisters, the subsidies on cooking gas by $3.08. The subsidy reduced from $19.24 to $16.16. All the savings they made, instead of increasing the subsidy to make cooking gas cheaper, they reduced the subsidies to make it more expensive on your backs. So the 20-pound cooking gas, brothers and sisters, we are paying $36 today. Had they kept the subsidy at the 1924, we would have paid $3 for that tank of cooking gas. And if Philip J. Pierre could say $5 could block a hole, I believe $3 can block a hole as well. But no. People are struggling, brothers and sisters, under the burden of high prices and inflation. But yet still, this government subjects you, the people, to gas price gouging. The government collected $34 million more in excise tax from petroleum products in 2023 to a whooping $68 million. $68 million was collected. Never in the history of St. Lucia have we collected so much money on excise tax of petroleum products. That, brothers and sisters, you can say is extortion. Because those monies are coming from the pockets of you, the people. When you're supposed to pay cheaper for the gas, because it is now cheaper on the world market, but they have kept the prices, the taxes high, so you pay more. This government, brothers and sisters, is forcing you, the people, to pay more taxes and fuel so that it can keep its hacks, its cronies, its friends, families, and yes, the same foreigners they decried in opposition, they are keeping the foreigners fat. That's right. That's what it is. Making you pay more, extorting your pockets, so that the hacks, the cronies, the families, the friends, and the foreigners are getting fat on your monies. That's right. That is what they're doing, brothers and sisters. They have reduced subsidies on flour, causing the price of bread, bakes, cakes to go up. They have caused the price of electricity to go up. They have caused the price of bus fares to go up. And they are so wicked, brothers and sisters, they have cut the subsidy on school transportation. And what was the excuse in the Senate? Oh, they cut the subsidy because vulnerable students who were on the program had already left the program. So if today a vulnerable child comes off the program, there are not more vulnerable children out there? You have made life so difficult in this country that everybody is vulnerable right now. Everybody in St. Lucia is vulnerable. Every single St. Lucian is going through financial difficulties as a result of the bad economic policies of this Prime Minister and this government. And you've made $68 million more in taxes on fuel. You have increased bus taxes on students, bus fares. You have increased the price of bread on families and students. And yet still, you have cut the school transportation subsidy. That tells you that these guys have no conscience. They're only about themselves. They're only about one set of people, not you, the St. Lucians. When the Labour Party said, putting you first, they never said putting all St. Lucians first. Putting a selected few first. That's what they meant. Putting a selected few first. Not all of us. Brothers and sisters, this UWP government believes in keeping taxes as low as possible to allow more money into your pockets. We believe that you, the people, are the best decision makers when it comes to spend your money, not the government. But the Labour Party does not believe in that. They don't believe in that. They believe that they could tax you. They could overtax you, the people, and spend the money how they want, how they please. And this is what is going on in the country today. The government slapped an already struggling nation, a struggling economy, with a compounding 2.5% health and security levy. 2.5% tax, and they call it a health and security levy. And they made us believe, brothers and sisters, that it was to help with improved health and security services. But we all know that this was a lie. They lied about the health and security levy because we know that it was for 2 policy-based loans by the World Bank and CDB for $100 million each, and making life more difficult for you, the people of St. Lucia. This levy has added to the high inflation with increasing the price of food. They said it was not going to affect the price of food. 2 weeks after that, KFC put out a notice, price of food is going to go up. And everything on supermarket shelves kept on going up. Again, it was a lie, brothers and sisters. Increasing the price of goods and services, cost of rent, cost of manufacturing, the cost of vehicle replacement parts, the cost of insurance, cost of banking has gone up. The cost of almost everything has gone up as a result of this bogus 2.5% health and security levy, brothers and sisters. And still, we have problems at OKEU. Still, we have problems at St. Jude. Still, the health centers have issues. No medicine, not even Panadol, no toilet paper, no beds, no pillows, no bed sheets, nothing. And they are collecting 2.5%. Brothers and sisters, this government gave bus drivers an increase with one hand and took it back with the other hand by increasing the cost of operating a minibus. They gave the bakers an increase with one hand, but they have taken it away with the other hand by increasing the cost of operating a bakery. They gave pensioners a raise and took it away by keeping inflation, food prices, fuel, and the cost of living high. They are planning on giving low-wage earners a minimum wage. But they will take it on the other hand with the increase in higher prices in electricity, the increase in internet, in cable, in telephone services, the increase in cooking gas, bus fares, bread, food, and the cost of living. Nothing is for free under this Labour Party. When they give it to you in the right hand, they take it back with the left hand. That is how they operate. Philip J. Pierre and this Labour Party, brothers and sisters, is playing the people of St. Lucia for fools. It takes away from you, gives some people crumbs, and giving their hacks, their cronies, their friends, their families, big jobs, our overpriced contracts, and they're selling our country for peanuts to foreigners like GPH. That is what they're doing. They take from you, they give some people crumbs, and all the fat is given to their hacks, their cronies, their friends, their families, and the foreigners like GPH. They sell our patrimony next to nothing. And all the concerned citizens, all the groups who were fighting about patrimony, everybody is quiet today. When our pots have been sold for 40 years for nothing. Brothers and sisters, we have an economy which is in shambles, as I said earlier. Every sector of the economy is in decline. Economic growth is the worst in the OECS. Debt is on the increase. Interest and principal repayment on the increase. Inflation, third highest in the ECCU. Cost of living out of control. Tourism is yet to get back to pre-COVID-19 levels. Every sector of agriculture is in decline. Every sector. Brothers and sisters, everything that this Labour Party touches, they destroy it. This is a party of destruction. They found an economy working, an economy which was put on good footing by Alan Shastri and the United Workers' Party, and in 3 years, they have destroyed it. Brothers and sisters, in 2019, we had the dreaded COVID-19. And pharmaceutical companies around the world were quick in 1 year to get a vaccine to bring this COVID under control. And we are able to live normal lives today. We have gone through the COVID era. But brothers and sisters, today, we have a pandemic in St. Lucia. We've gone through the COVID-19 pandemic, but today, brothers and sisters, we have a pandemic in St. Lucia, and this pandemic is called the St. Lucia Labour Party. The Labour Party is a pandemic, and no vaccine from Pfizer, no vaccine from Moderna, no vaccine from Johnson & Johnson is going to eradicate this pandemic called the Labour Party. The only vaccine to eradicate this pandemic called the Labour Party is you. You, the people. You have to rise to the occasion. You have to hold this government accountable. You have to demand better. You have to call on this Prime Minister to call elections now. You have to ask this Prime Minister to fire the minister responsible for CIP. You have to ask him to fire the Minister for Local Government for victimizing our vendors. You have to ask the Prime Minister to fire Emma Hippolyte for making secret deals with our ports. You have to ask this Prime Minister to fire the Minister of Agriculture for decimating the agricultural sector. You, the people, you are the vaccine to get rid of this pandemic called the Labour Party. You have to mobilize. You have to show the anger, the frustration. You have to demonstrate. You have to scream. You have to shout. You have to cry if you have to cry. We cannot wait for 2 years to eradicate this pandemic in St. Lucia. We have to force an election this year. And it must be you, the people. You all are the vaccine. Because if not, this economy is going to continue down the drain. And I do not know what or how another government by the United Workers' Party will be able to bring St. Lucia back to its glory days. But I know we've been there. We've done it. With hard work, with perseverance, with men and women who understands how to govern, who understands good governance and economic management, we will get St. Lucia back on its feet again. But brothers and sisters, remember we are over COVID, but the new pandemic is the Labour Party, and the vaccine to get rid of it is you, the people. I thank you very much.